And now, welcome to the Patriot Pulse podcast.
Good morning, everybody. It is March 4th. We are into the month of March. We're right around the corner from spring. So welcome to the Patriot Pulse podcast. As a reminder, we are also simulcasting to Two Guys Drinking Coffee on Facebook. And we have some special guests on with us today. We have Kevin Goggins from Unite for Freedom, as well as Randy Barber and Kim Wathen, two very active freedom fighters and fighters for election integrity. But before we get into that, let's just start with a little housekeeping here. Again, keep in mind, we are still severely shadow banned. We've had people say they can't even find us on Rumble, which is amazing because Rumble's supposed to be a very censorship-free platform, but we're not seeing that as the case. So if you are watching us on Facebook, click like, share. If you're on Rumble, please click subscribe. We're also live on X, Bradford TV, and other platforms as well. So help us overcome the algorithms by clicking like and share and all of that. But before we get started with our guests, we just want to do a little 30-second promo with our sponsor here to help pay our bills.
Need to get your brand noticed, remembered, and loved? At Everything Printed Promo, we turn your logo into walking, talking, shareable billboards. Whatever the occasion, we make you look amazing every time. Pens, shirts, drinkware, tech gadgets, you dream it, we print it perfectly. Visit everythingprintedpromo.com or call 888-619-9286 today. First-time customers get 15% off. Let's make your brand unforgettable.
Okay, we are supposed to have three guests on with us today. As I mentioned, Kevin, Randy Barber, and Kim Wathen. We're having some technical difficulties with the other two, but I'm going to bring Kevin on right now because he's got to leave us early anyway. So while Randy and Kim are working out their technical problems, we'll get started with Kevin. Kevin, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it. I have just been recently introduced to Kevin through Unite for Freedom, and just found that the work that they are doing is amazing to try to uncover the fraud in our elections across the country. And specifically, Kevin, you wanted to mention a little bit about what's going on in Texas right now. So why don't I turn it over to you and you can fill us in?
Sure. Welcome. I'm very glad to be here. It's great to be any podcast or radio show that starts with Patriot. I'm happy to be involved with. It's great because that's what it's going to take to save our country, quite honestly. So, we're in the process. As we know, we just had the Texas primary yesterday, and we're in the process of dropping getting ready to release our Texas early vote tampering report. So that should come out soon. It's got to go through our peer review process. So I'll just kind of explain a little bit about that. At our X account at United Sovereign Americans, at United Sovereign Americans on X, you can see the report we dropped on Sunday night, which was for the 2024 Texas vote tampering report. And that shows it's complicated, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds with everybody. But basically, it shows how many votes were injected, moved around, deleted. What they're doing is after certification, our data shows, and during the voting right now in Texas, it shows that they are moving votes on and off, deleting them, adding them at all times. And we have a record of that. We've tracked that. As we look at our data over the slice of time, we've been looking at data since 2020. So we have 2020 data in some states, 2022 data, and 2024 data. And our data scientists, who are amazing and do all the hard work, and there's close to 100 of them, spend time looking at those. And you look at it, if you look at a slice of a voter roll, because we get all this directly from the states. This is FOIA information, comes directly to us, chain of custody, all of that. Also entered in 9 federal lawsuits, all of our data. So it's legit data. You look at it over time and you can see changes. to people's voter histories, or vote. Did they vote? Did they not vote? Are they there? Are they not there? And we can see that over many, many states. Pennsylvania is one of them that will be coming up soon. But we released Colorado a couple weeks ago in an effort to try to help the Tina Peters situation. That got a lot of attention. And we released Texas on Sunday night, and we will release our early voting. So now what we see in early voting is what we saw over time was they were doing those changes over the times in between elections. Every time we look at a slice of data, things would have changed in people's voter histories, which is, in our mind, a federal offense by changing a federal record multiple times. And we're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions in some states of changes. The Colorado numbers, for example, in 2020, 2022, and 2024 combined was 489,000 changes. So we'll see something similar to that. When we released this in Texas for this primary, in Texas is different. What you have to understand about getting voter data is not the easiest. You can, some states it costs like $17,000 to get one copy. In Texas, you're able to sign up and get it whenever you want. So we have a very ambitious data scientist team down there, and they set up a way to grab it at multiple times during the day. So they've been grabbing data since early voting started at multiple times. And then you can compare all those snapshots. So they're comparing them almost in real time and seeing what's going on and how that's happening. And you see votes adding, which is great. Then you see votes dropping. So what did people unvote? Did they go back into the polls and say, give me my vote back? I want to come on. No, they didn't. So we got to figure out what happened. Now, we don't know. We're just asking for that needs to be investigated, and certainly should be investigated before it's certified. So we're going to try to get that information out here very soon so that a lot of people can get behind it, and we can bring that to folks' attention, and they can decide to do something with it, or we hope they will.
Okay. So you're getting this data directly from the states, correct? Like the
Secretary of State's website. In Texas case, the Secretary of State's website. Yep.
All right.
Anybody can do this one. Yep.
So when you're saying you're almost seeing them change in real time. So I mean, this is after the election has occurred, and you're looking one time it'll be this number, then you look at it again, whatever hours or days later, and it's changed. And make sure I understand, this is actually after the votes have been counted and the election's been certified, and everything should stay the way it is, right? I mean, am I correct on that?
Yep. You're talking about the one mostly for the 2024 data when we look at it over a long length of years, 20 data, 2022 data, 24 data, and we compare all that together. What we're doing in Texas is we're looking at data from the first day of voting, which I think was 2/17, and then we look at every day, and we go back and relook at 2/17. And when you look at 2/17, you'll see it go up and then go down, and you'll see that in multiple days. So it's, like I say, it's complicated, but we are looking slice of data. That slice of data from 2/17 shouldn't change much, right? Maybe change a little. We're talking tens of thousands of votes dropping on some days. Well, it'll all be explained in our report, but this is a much more condensed time period than we normally look at it. We normally look at it over a couple of years, but with Texas, we're able to look at it, like I said, quite often. So we didn't know, again, we don't know what we're going to find when we start looking at these things. It could be perfectly clean. That would be great, but that's not what we see. We see the vote totals on 2/17. If we look back at them again on 2/21, we look back on 2/17, we'll see a different vote total, and it will be less.
So, all right. So in Texas, it sounds like from the beginning of when early voting starts to up through the election day itself, that you can see the numbers on the Secretary of State's website, Department of State's website.
Yep.
Because that's in Pennsylvania, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is what I thought. For example, in McKean County, all the early voting, all the mail-in votes, for example, my wife and I usually go over to the courthouse a few days before the election and request our mail-in ballot in person, and then fill it out right there at the courthouse and turn it back in at the courthouse. So we eliminate the mail. But as I understand it from the county commissioners, they don't open any of those mail-in ballots until election day. It might be even after 8 o'clock.
Mhm.
I'm not sure, but so they only report once. Isn't that's obviously not the way through all the different states?
No, that's not the way through different states. Every state has their own. Some start getting a jump start on it. They count the day of, and there's various things. But this would have nothing really potentially to do with that, because that's a separate set of ballots. What we're talking about is the people who voted on the votes that they counted on 2/17. We look back at it a couple days later, and that total, let's just say it was 60,000. That total then is 45,000 total votes. So why would it drop?
Why would it go down?
And then it goes back up and drop. So there's things that need investigation, is what we're saying, before you can certify. And so that's all we're saying. We're not trying to say, hey, could there be a logical reason that a normal person can't figure out right now with common sense? Perhaps, but can you show us? And not just fluff it off and say it's this. Can you prove it? Can you bring up those records, and can you show the changes? You should have a record of those changes and why that change occurred, correct? So can you show us all this?
Yeah.
Want clarity.
Fred, did you want to say something?
I said you want clarity, and we want it to be plain and election integrity, period.
You want it to be.
If there's a reason, there's a reason. Let's just show it.
Well, you want it to be honest, first of all.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. Even in the Republican Party, I know in Pennsylvania, if you even mention election integrity or the possibility of election fraud, some of these people just go batshit crazy on you. I mean, we have free and fair election. There's nothing wrong with our election, and these are Republicans that are supposed to want, honest elections.
Well, I think they're showing that they don't. Otherwise, they'd pass the SAVE Act already, or at least bring it up and get to try to move it forward. So they're showing that that's not the case. We haven't had anybody really, anybody. I say there's a few people, right? We're making some conversations with people here and there, but it's a difficult topic for them. They're part of the system. That what we're talking about potentially having problems elected them. And so, that's part of it, is that they're in that process. So they want to, maybe give it a real benefit of the doubt. But I think this is exactly where the crux of the problem is right now, where we are in this point of history right now. We believe, because we do share our information with people that can do something about it. We've figured out who can do something about it, and those are the people we're sharing it with. And we do think the president eventually will need to do, at a minimum, executive order, and perhaps more. To be able to get this under control, he'll have to show obviously all the information to the American people. And as that comes out, as he does that, they did the thing in Fulton County. They took all the ballots. There's going to be a report on those ballots at some point. There'll be a full report. Then there's going to be the other side. Well, they tampered with them. They did whatever. These people are crazy. Whatever. And then if the president does an executive order based on that information and other information, it'll be the same thing. They're going to come after him again and say he's tyrannical. He's trying to disenfranchise voters. Blah blah blah. So what we need to do as the American people, as patriots, is this is our time to stand up and support the president. And we are asking, our legislators at the state level legislators, very bluntly, we are asking them the day after this comes out, we want you on your Capitol steps in support of what the president is talking about with a press conference. And you can we'll share our data with them. We'll sit down with them. We'll make sure they understand it, get them comfortable, so that they, because this is all about, politicians are all about perception and things they stand for. We want them to feel comfortable with our data, but like I said, we entered it in 9 federal lawsuits. That's under the penalty of perjury. So if you're entering false data in a federal lawsuit under the Biden administration, I'd be wearing a different color today within the group that I'm working with if that was not legitimate data.
Yeah, I got you there. So I know you, and again, it's 9:15. I know you're crunched for time here. So
I got a little more time. Take your time, whatever we can make it work.
Okay. So talk about, because you mentioned it, and I know Kim is still, her camera's not on, but I'm assuming her audio is on. Kim, are you with us? Kim? Evidently her audio is not working either. So still having technical difficulties with Tim and Randy, but talk to us a little bit about the SAVE Act. I mean, we kind of know, most of us know what it's about, voter ID, election integrity, all that. But give me the 30,000-foot view of the SAVE Act and why it's important to pass.
So we have a 15-point plan on our website of what would need to be done to fix the entire system. So given the fact that they haven't taken many actions to address the election system anywhere, the SAVE Act is a step in the right direction. And the things that are on there are on our plan, but there are many more things on our plan. The caution we have about the SAVE Act is let's pass it and get it in motion and get it done. Get it in effect for 26, but let's not walk away from elections. The tendency that politicians have is to pass part of a bill that affects it partly, and then says, yeah, we fixed elections, we're all good. Yeah. So then they'll never go back to it. No, the press does it too, right? Oh yeah, we covered that story, right? I forget what they call that, but that's what we're afraid of, is them doing that. So we want them to do more than just the SAVE Act, because there's so many areas that the SAVE Act still allows for fraud to enter into the system, and it just needs to be a lot more detailed. But we'll take the beginning steps as a positive motion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Tom, though. Tom says here clearly, I think you should have to vote in person unless it's an extreme situation. I mean, if you have a serious health issue, you're working out of country because you're in the military or something like that, you should have to vote in person, period.
Yep.
No other reason, unless you got some real reason to stop you from getting to that voters poll. There should be no reason that you shouldn't go in there.
Yeah. The real sticky point you get with this is, the Constitution does call out that states ultimately run the elections. Of course, you get a federal election, and that's what we focus on. We only focus on federal elections because of the federal election law. Now you have rules that you have to abide by the federal election. So it's going to be very interesting how all this kind of plays out and how it works out. But it's a step in the right direction. Yes, voting in person, same day voting, and all this would be ideal. But trust us, there's still ways that they can work around that.
That's the scary part. I think what the real reason why it hasn't been pushed is a lot of these people know that they're guilty of doing this. So if they push it, they might find out that their name's involved in some of this corruption.
It's possible, or they've got plausible deniability, or
Yeah, one of the criticisms I've heard from the SAVE Act, even of proponents of it, is that it doesn't have any teeth. In other words, we can uncover this, but then what are you going to do about it? What are the penalties if people are caught in a fraudulent situation with our elections?
It's a very good point.
It's one thing to uncover it, but it's just like what's going on all across our government right now. We are uncovering things day after day, but nobody ever gets charged. Nobody ever goes to jail. Nobody ever goes to trial, because it's right. Almost like they have immunity.
That's what it is. That's exactly where we are with elections. That's why we're not like going to break down the wall to say pass the SAVE Act. Yes, that would be great. But quite honestly, we've already talked about crimes that they've already laws that they've already broken. And we can point out, our data points out multiple laws that they break, and they break them every election. And so there is no adjudication. There's nobody held accountable. And that isn't going to change with more laws. That just isn't going to change with more laws. They'll just break more laws. So it does get down to the president, the federal government, in our opinion, is the only people that can really fix this at the national level. Getting involved and doing the right thing and stepping up and explaining to people what's been happening. With everything that's so we see signs of that happening with the ballots in Georgia, the machines supposedly in Puerto Rico, if that's true. Those the things that are out there. So we expect it to be happening, and we do know our data will play a big part in it, because we are working with those folks to get them to understand it.
Before you have to leave, let me ask you a little bit, and Randy is back on if he wants to chime in too at this point, but tell us a little bit, in your opinion, what the president and his administration has the ability to do, and what are the laws concerning that as far as the executive branch? That what can he do to right the problem, correct the problem.
Yeah. You're asking the point blank question. It's a great question, and that's true. And Randy and I have actually been working on that. I'm certainly going to let him speak on it because he's talked to a couple of people, done some research. But I operate restaurants. Randy operates a chainsaw and trucks. There are lawyers that know these things very, very well, and how it's gonna work. There's arguments on both sides of what he can and can't do. When we talk about the national emergency portion of it specifically, right? The executive order portion he can do. He's done that. The problem, which has already happened, he's already done executive orders that basically have been tossed by the court, not held up, not the states aren't abiding by them. So that's why we feel like it's got to be more than an executive order. And for his ability to do that, we believe it's there, but it will be argued and it will be difficult. But we do believe he can put a national emergency because what our data shows, other folks' data shows, it is I know out of state and out of country actor that is doing some of this manipulation. This is happening behind the scenes. This is not our county people, our state people. This is happening at a very high level. They have access to all. We've been in 35 states. They have access to 35 states voter roll data. This is not those county executives. This is much higher than that, right? So there's a group. It's a nation state actor, we believe, doing it, and so that then kicks up a lot more that he can do because of that. Because of some other orders that have been passed in the past, but Randy probably does know a little bit more about that.
Well, that's absolutely correct. Is the fact that we are now realizing and finding evidence that we have foreign actors involved with this, that just opens the door to a lot more things that the president can do, and namely that would be to declare the emergency declaration. The election system was put into the national infrastructure in 2017. And so if there's a foreign entity meddling, manipulating, whatever, our elections, that rises to the level of an attack on the United States, and it's a national emergency. And it is an attack on the United States. I mean, we've talked to a lot of people on this issue, and even though it's not a nuclear missile, it's still an attack. And they have interfered with elections in countries around the world, and it ends up bringing the country down by putting people in positions of power that are not looking out for the interest of the country or their constituents. So it is an existential threat, and it needs to be addressed. And so because it's involving a foreign entity, the president has absolutely every right in the world as the commander in chief. He has not only the authority, but the responsibility under Article 2 of the Constitution to act. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people say, well, he can't do that. He has to ask Congress. Well, no, he doesn't. If we have a nuclear missile coming at us, he doesn't have to go to Congress and argue for 25 minutes or 3 or 4 days about whether he can act. That's an emergency. It's his responsibility as commander in chief to act, to defend the country. This is no different. It's just a slow motion attack, but it's nevertheless an attack. And in the words of David Clements, who we all know, I was talking to him one day, and he put it very simply. He said, this attack is every bit as dangerous as nuclear bombs or nuclear missiles. It might even be more dangerous because people neither recognize nor want to address the attack. It's a sneak attack in a way. And so it could be actually more dangerous. And so, yeah, he can declare an election emergency, but what can he do once he's declared that emergency is the question that's going to be debated. And there's already been some news out that he's reviewing a draft executive order that will include the emergency declaration, and some of the opposition is lining up, as we knew they would, saying, oh, he can't do that. He can't affect the elections, and they talk about states' rights. Well, one of the things that is the most probably concrete things that gives him the power to do something is it says that the law says that he had every state has the right to a republic, a fair vote, and a Republican system of government. When a state, or as we know, multiple states, have their data manipulated. They've got all sorts of laws that are being broken. They're not following federal election law by any means. And we have truckloads of evidence that laws are not being followed. They're certifying elections that should not be certified. The elections that they're certifying, they cannot prove who the winner is with all of the false votes that are coming in, apparently from false registrations. We have all kinds of evidence of all that happening. Therefore, they have violated their right to a clean vote for a Republican form of government. The federal government has the responsibility and authority to enforce that every state has that. It's in the Constitution. So, because that they have taken down clean and fair elections in any state, we believe it's very widespread, probably every state. We certainly have found problems in all the 35 states that we're involved with. That opens the door for the federal government to step in and take action. They don't have a right as a state to manipulate their elections or allow their elections to be manipulated that will take fair and free elections from the people in their state, but it also affects all the other states.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at the presidential elections, they're looking at senators and Congress, et cetera, et cetera. So they don't have a right with their state's rights to bring the country down. They don't have a right to allow the people in their state to be deprived of a fair election and a Republican form of government, which spills over into all the other states and affects everybody. So that's a very strong point that's in the Constitution.
I think it's fair to say, and I don't think anybody could argue this point, that our Congress is, at least for the time being, irrevocably broken.
Yeah.
And you're never going, in other words, if we handed this off to the Congress to try to do something about it, they're never going to agree. I mean, Republicans can't even agree with each other, let alone get both sides of the aisle to come together. So if you can't get the Congress to do it, if you can't get the judicial branch to do it, which we know that branch of government has been totally corrupted as well, they're bought and paid for, then what does that leave? You only have one branch of government left, right?
Well, that's
Kim,
correct.
I mean, Kim, do you want to chime in on this?
I do.
Go ahead.
Good morning. So I want to just say, it's not obviously not only Congress that's broken. There's a lot of things in our government and our election system that are broken. And I love how God works, because all the stuff that's happening, knowing that over 80% of people think there's something wrong with our elections and want the SAVE Act passed, and Congress is still struggling to do this and fighting against it. That really says a lot. And I love how God just takes what they want to use for bad and he uses it to magnify the bad that they're doing and how against their constituents that they are. It just really magnifies it. And I want to read a quote from the draft that Randy was mentioning. There was an article that came out in the Washington Post that laid some of the facts out about that, because somebody got a hold of a copy of the draft. So as a part of this draft, it says, there is now clear and compelling evidence from court cases and forensic analysis that these threats have not been mitigated, but instead have intensified. This was dated April 2025, so this has been out for a while. And it says this constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. And don't forget that Trump had already issued he's two executive orders that I'm thinking of. One was for mail-in ballots, which I think 5 states now are taking him to court on that. But I believe it's in his first presidency when he issued the directive to say that if foreign countries interfered in our elections, that we could stop that. So if you want to say that God is not with that man, I mean, that's some foresight right there. He knew in his first term.
Yeah,
that this is going on.
and maybe he had seen some data. Who knows, right? That would be,
Yes.
But the other thing that when Kim's talking and we're all talking, like we're talking about this going on right now in the 26th primary in Texas that just happened yesterday. So it's still happening. So our hope is he can continue to not only say that this did happen, but this is still happening, and utilize this as another way to say, look, and I look at it like, because these people know, right? Whoever was doing what they're doing, they know that we know, and they know that we've published and that we talk about it, but they're still doing it. So that's very brazen on their part. So
well, and they want to try to say that, they poo-poo it and say it's all been debunked and there's only a tiny bit of election fraud, maybe hundreds of cases. I just heard the other day. We know that that's not the truth. And there's another little example from this article that are not even, they're like kind of, they're significant, but we don't really hear about this stuff that much. It says last June, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley released FBI records showing an initial tip alleging a Chinese effort to produce fraudulent driver's licenses for mail ballots. Suspicions of Chinese ballots spurred the hunt for bamboo filters in Arizona ballots during a Republican-led audit in 2021, which reaffirmed Joe Biden's victory in the state. So there's a lot of different things feeding into this, and Unite for Freedom, our data team, it has one focus, but there's a lot of things that are feeding into this, and that leads back to my statement. And when I first started talking about, there's so many things feeding into this. The system is so broken. It's not just mail-in ballots. It's not just machines. It's not just the early voting. There's so many things that feed into this.
Yeah.
So, and I think Trump has known for a very long time, and he's patient. He bides his time, and personally, I feel like he's God led, and that's why he's able to be patient and know.
We've got some Unite for Freedom people watching on the podcast today, and Ken from the Unite for Freedom group did put a comment in the chat here. Since it doesn't show up on the screen, I can't put it on the screen, but I can read it here. He says, Unite for Freedom was never created to analyze theoretical algorithms. Unite for Freedom was created to produce forensic evidence tied to actual voting records. Some volunteers explored algorithm theories before coming to U4F. That's fine, but our organization focuses on forensic analysis tied to real voting records because that is what can be proven and acted on. And he goes on to talk about the mission of the thing. But I think that's the important part here, is that we're not talking, or I'm not, I can't include me in this, but Unite for Freedom and all your data analysts are not talking theoretical here. They're talking hard evidence that can be proven, which gives more, I would think it would give more credence and more ammunition for the president of the United States to act, because the other two branches of government will not act to secure our elections.
Yep.
Thoughts on that?
That kind of goes along with what I was saying too, is that it just magnifies the fact that, and it gives Trump the opportunity. I think it's just setting him up to be able to do this emergency order, because they see this and they know what the public wants, and they see the data, and so many people are seeing it now, and they refuse to do anything about it. Yeah. So it's basically opening the door for him to do this emergency act or Article 2 powers. There's lots of things that feed into that too. This article also talks about the different laws, and there's a lot of different laws that feed into this too, and give him that opportunity to do an emergency act.
I actually have a couple of those laws here that I could quote. That we put a document together to send to state and county legislators who were asking for the legal background about why he can declare an emergency and what he can do when he does. And as we've said already, Congress is broken, everything is broken. We have nothing left but the executive branch, and there are provisions in the Insurrection Act that say when these problems can't be fixed under extraordinary circumstances, and there seems to be no solution through normal channels, that gives the president broad sweeping powers to take action. But
Right.
specifically,
Yeah. Well,
this says, quote, yes.
Yeah, just before, I mean, there are definitely laws. It's going to be a fight, though. That's what I think it's going to come down to, right? That's what,
Yes.
so, but here, and what Ken's point was, and what we used to refer to this, certainly when we were going into our federal cases, right? We have court-ready evidence. That's what we have. So whether that's a court of public opinion that the president or somebody chooses to use our evidence for to explain to people what's happening, or actually in a court. We have data that is court ready and acceptable, and that's how people should look at it and be comfortable. Now, we want to use that to be able to educate as many people as possible as to what's happening. So this podcast and others like it are very important for us to get the word out to people that this is happening, and it's still happening, as in Texas. And we need to get the word out to be able to get people to stand up and get our legislators to stand up and say, we support the president's actions. We want an investigation.
Yeah.
Well,
Open the books. Open the books. I think someone used the example, if like for the ballots in Georgia, they're all talking back and forth. Somebody made a good point. I was listening to a show one time. He said, if I tell my son to clean his room and he just shuts the door and says, yeah, it's clean, no problem, don't worry about it, I'm not going to take his word for it. That's what they're doing with the ballots. You can't have the ballots. We want the ballots back. You can't look at them. Oh, they're all good. But if they're all so good, why don't you just let us see the ballots? What's the problem?
Yes,
Exactly.
in Georgia, they've filed lawsuits trying to claw those ballots back and they've tried to get rid of them. Like, why? If they are so sure that everything is on the up and up with those, they should be happy to show that evidence. They should be happy to have.
But they know it's not clear. That's the reason why they're not going to show it to you.
Absolutely. And it's like one of the things that we run into that we're dealing with personally is we ask for the cast vote records in my county. And the federal law says that the cast vote records are part of the auditable material that shall be available to the public at all times. That's a pretty clear statement. New York State passed a law, statewide law, that says that their county boards are not allowed to give us the cast vote record, which is in direct contradiction of federal law. Federal law said what I just told you, and federal law supersedes state law in any federal election. And so Kim and I got together and we asked for a court. We were advised to ask a federal court for a declaratory judgment on that because, it's pretty obvious what the federal government says. And an example of the courts are broken. They won't rule on it. They filed a motion to dismiss on everything that comes before them. It doesn't matter what you put in front of them. Motion to dismiss, no standing. And so it's just sitting there. We're just going round and round in circles, filing motions back and forth. They won't rule on it. What are they hiding? Why can't we see the cast vote record? The federal government says we should be able to see it. New York State says, no, you can't. We take it to court, ask for it to get cleared up, and it just goes around in circles. You can't get anywhere with this system, and that's why it needs to go to the executive branch.
Yeah. Christy makes a good point here that would kind of support what you're saying. Court ready evidence goes to corrupt judges. Not that it's not, in other words, having that, you can have all sorts of irrefutable evidence, but if it goes to a corrupt judge or a corrupt panel, and I'm thinking Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court of any state, if the judicial system is corrupt, the evidence will mean nothing to them. They will ignore it.
Well, that's exactly right.
That supports the case for going to the executive branch.
And putting the actual emergency order in that supersedes that, because there will be no court challenges when you put by some readings of it, right? By some readings of it, right? So, but there is the court of public opinion. There is the court of public opinion, and that's what I think. We're working on trying to educate. I think the president will need to do a very good job of that, about what has actually been found in laying out the information to the public. I think when that happens, I think that will be a dramatic shift as long as it's done well. But we will need to be the backbone. We will need to be the grassroots work to be able to educate people, prop people up when the difficulty comes, and says, no, we have the evidence. It's available. We need to have this investigated. We're not trying to say this person won or that person won. We're just trying to say these
Yes.
elections are not valid, and
Right.
they're not certifiable, and they need to be investigated.
Well, I'd
They
like
need,
So-
to, they need to find a way to stop these people once they're caught doing this, doing anything wrong, being permanently banned for running for any public office whatsoever. Because
Absolutely.
these people
Well,
just move to the next spot.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
You guys
Yeah.
know I'm an exercise scientist, right? So I want to give a little example. So when I train someone for bodybuilding or whatever it happens to be, I'm more focusing on appearances versus function. Okay. If you go to a physical therapist, they're going to look at you and they're going to work a lot on function. So they work a lot on smaller muscles, stabilizing muscles, and it's not as much about appearance or losing weight or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of like, to me, it reminds me of that with the way all the laws and all the things that feed into our election system needing to be totally revamped. So just in that draft, they mention the National Emergencies Act of 1976, the Federal Information Security Modernization Act of 2014, the Defense Production Act of 1950. So, and then I know Randy has other ones, but we don't need to necessarily name them all. But there's so much that feeds into it that way. And the beauty of what Unite for Freedom has done is our data team has taken the data, and I was going to say argument, but I don't want to make it sound like it's random. It's very specific, and like Kevin said, it's been presented in lawsuits already, and people could be charged with perjury if those were lies. So we know that it will hold up in court if we ever get standing, which that's, the judges are another story. So there's so much information out there, but what Unite for Freedom has done is taken the thing that we know is true and real and that it will be able to stand up in court, and we've honed in on that. So we can have all the other arguments out there, which is fine and great, in my opinion. People are going to talk, people are going to focus on different things, and we know that the machines are bad too, but that's just not where we've chosen to focus. And so our data can stand up in court, and that's the beauty of the focus that we've taken. So there's lots of different voices out there, but it's not one thing over the other necessarily. We are just focusing on the thing that we know has been tried and tested and can be tried and tested to hold up in court.
Well, I'd like to make one important point about the data from U4F and how it ties in to a federal statute that, again, supports what the president can do as far as declaring an emergency and what he can do once he has done that. And this is 52 USC 10101 Federal Election Integrity Statute. It states that no person acting under color of law may deny or abridge the right to vote. If a state's officials or systems are found to have maintained fraudulent or non-compliant roles, of which we have truckloads of evidence at U4F, or obstructed lawful audits, we just talked about that, they are acting under color of law in violation of this statute. Federal intervention then becomes a law enforcement matter rather than an election administration dispute. That gives broad sweeping powers under an emergency declaration for the president to act.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've got a key question here that I want to make sure we address before our time is up. All right, let's assume, for the sake of argument, that he's going to do it, that this is going to happen, and we all know in any situation timing is key. Because we know as soon as he does it, there's going to be lawsuits filed in every state in the country, and they'll bring the Supreme Court into it, all that. So let me just ask you point blank, and I'll ask all four of you or three of you, And 4, Fred, you can chime in too. Number 1, is he going to do it? And when do you think the important time is to do it? Right before the general election, as soon as possible? What are you thinking?
Right before.
I don't think we can say for sure that he's going to do it, but we feel very strongly that he is going to do it, and there's a lot of indications that it's going to happen. He's reviewing a draft, and we believe he's going to do it, but we can't promise that or when. However, if he is going to do it, I think that part of his calculus from what we're hearing or what we think is happening is it is important to have the court of public opinion supporting him on this, because there is going to be an argument, there's going to be a debate. And so when we can come out with laws, our legislators asked us point blank if we can come up with the laws like one of the ones I just read, there's more, to support the fact that he can do this, then they will stand up and support us. And I think it's important to start getting the word out to people, getting word out to our legislators, get the noise out there. I don't care who it is, judges, Congress, state senators, the public, whatever, that yes, he can do this, and this is why, and it needs to be done. So I think there's some hesitation there. I think they want the court of public opinion to swing in their favor. I think it's happening. I think they're trying to release more and more evidence, like Fulton County, what's going on in Texas, et cetera, that all supports the idea that when he pulls the trigger that he's going to have good reason. And I think there's going to be more coming. And I think they're building a case.
I agree with Randy. He's right on point. We don't know any of the exact details, but to me, it has to happen if we want to save the country, to be quite honest. So what I would say is, and to support what Randy's talking about, and we've been talking about a little bit, is, come join us at uniteforfreedom.com. You can sign up to volunteer. You can donate $10 a month. We do have ongoing costs. We do file lawsuits with a lot of things. We spend money on it. We're all grassroots. Nobody gets paid, but we do need some income. But mostly join us as volunteers, so you can be some of the people spreading this information and message. We do ongoing training. We have a training Thursday night, for example, about our reports, so that people understand them and can talk about them. Everything's available on our website, as you're showing there. But sign up and be part of it, because right now we have to get involved. We have to push the court of public opinion. We have to backstop that. We have to show them and educate them. And we're doing that in multiple ways, but we do that in a fairly organized fashion. But we need more people. We need more patriots. We need more people to join. For today only, we'll say it's free to join. But it's all, so just come on in, hit that button, volunteer. We run things state by state, and your state chapter director will be in touch with you, and we'll get you into the fold, and we'll move forward, and you can be part of saving the country, because this is the data that can save the country, and it'll be very exciting.
I want to piggyback. I want to piggyback on what Kevin said. We have our digital army that we push every day to get the word out. And if you have 10 minutes a day, you can come in, you can post, and we have a chat that people put their posts in. You can just like and share. It's that simple. If you have 10 minutes a day, if you have 3 hours a day, you can do that. It's super simple, super easy to do. Anybody can figure that out, and it doesn't matter how much or little time you have. And as far as Trump issuing this order, in my opinion, I just can see God through all of it, and I really can see that we have to work, we have to keep working hard, and we have to keep doing what we're doing. But I really think it's like I said last night on our state director call. I always feel like God comes sliding into home base at the last minute. Just when you think he's not going to do anything, here he comes. And I really feel like that I can see God's hand in all of this, and that the timing always ends up working out in our favor right now, because the tide is definitely turned.
Fred, do you have any thoughts on that?
I said I had a question, and I've heard this, and it's just speculation, but you guys look deeper in this stuff than I do. There's a rumor that the reason why in PA, I'm just saying PA, you get so many calls to ask you if you're voting or not, is they can simply have your name and your address, and they can get a mail-in ballot in your name if you are not voting.
Don't know the PA law to be off the top of my head, but I would, that is possible from other states that I've heard. So that's a possibility. But I think you get so many votes because the parties track, the parties have access to voter records daily. So they can see who did vote. And so then they knock that person off if they voted, and they should stop calling them or texting them. But if you didn't vote, then you might get that information. Now, if you'd already voted and you still get those numbers, then that's might be something different. But they do try to track people in tight elections, especially people who have shown, the high propensity voters. They make sure they try to get them out. So you could be, the people could be on a list to be able to be pushed to devote to the polls. But there's a lot of reasons. I think, look, mail-in ballots are a big problem. They're way too accessible. California is a full mail-out ballot state. Everybody who's on the voter registration gets a ballot mailed to them. That's just absolutely
So is Oregon.
ridiculous.
Oregon
Ridiculous.
is also.
Just ridiculous. So, so there's all that kind of. We do mail-in ballots are the one of the ways that they really take advantage of the system. Let's just leave it at that.
True.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We're coming up on the top of the hour. It's 9:52. What I'd like to do is give each one of you a chance to any final comments. We definitely, as I mentioned, March 25th, we're going to have Unite for Free. I don't know if I mentioned that on air before, but on March 25th, we're going to have representatives from Unite for Freedom to come on and just talk about that organization. So you'll get a follow-up on this conversation, I'm sure. But Kim, let's start with you. Any final thoughts?
No, so there's lots of what do they say? Static noise. There's lots of it. There are lots of voices, lots of people working, and we're so divided, even on the right already. I think we need to make sure that, if somebody's busting their butt, don't knock them down. Bring them alongside us. Invite them to do what we're doing. Invite them to Unite for Freedom, because we have so many things people can do. Whether they have a lot of time or a little, whether they have a lot of money to donate or whether they don't, they can help us along. Some days it feels like we haven't gotten anywhere, but then other days we jump forward huge. And it's been 5 years we've been doing this, that we've been plugging away, and we need more people. So happy for you to join us. Come help us save America.
Kevin, do you want to jump in next?
No, that's a great one. I mean, we need the help. UniteForFreedom.com. Help us save the country. We have that court-ready evidence. We're grassroots. We work hard every day. We have trainings. We have everything you need to be successful if you have the will and desire to help us save the country, which is all obviously a worthwhile cause.
Oh, good. Randy?
Yeah, I'm going to follow that up with again saying, we need people to help. There's, as Kevin just said, there's all kinds of training for people who really want to roll their sleeves up and dig into this. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of support to take somebody who really starting from scratch and get them into their niche. There's so many different things that they could do. But beyond that, we're not usually ones to go around asking for money a lot, but there is need for money. And, if all you want to do is donate $10 or $20 or whatever and join up and help us in that way, that's very helpful too. And, most people can do that. If you really find it in your heart that you want to help, just doing that is a help. So we need more people, and we're trying to put together a convention for Unite for Freedom, and we're trying to bring entities together. And to follow up with what Kim was saying, we're trying to bring people together. There's many different people doing many different things, but we're all working towards the same goal. We're all working towards saving the country. We're all working towards cleaning up the election mess. So, when we have this convention, we want to invite people, groups, whatever we can get to come in there and support what we're doing. We need everybody that we've got. There's so many people and so many groups that are working on this. And to me, we need everybody, all hands on deck, to keep pushing towards a common goal.
I want to throw in there too, even if you want to join us to pray, I started an intercessory prayer group as a part of Unite for Freedom also. And I think Kevin will agree that we've made some major gains since we started doing that prayer group.
Yep.
So even if you can do that, join us.
Fred, final thoughts?
I agree with him. It's going to take people to get involved. We can't sit still and just expect things to happen. I think some people got comfortable once Trump won and they sat back and they thought that that's all we need to do. Trump's in there. No, we have to do more. In order to get past this junk, we have to do more.
Well,
Yeah,
to
I
quote
think-
General Flynn, who we've discussed things with on multiple occasions, we talk about Trump. A lot of people have a lot of faith in Trump. I myself have a lot of faith in him, but he can't do it all alone.
No,
And as General Flynn has put it many times, nobody's coming to save us. We need to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
We, the people, need to stand up, get involved, and help get the country back on track. We need people. We need people to get involved. We need that big voice from we, the people.
right.
And
I
this is
think-
not a one and done either. It's not. Randy and I went to a museum in Washington, D.C., and we were looking through the history of America. And one thing that stood out to me, before the ink was dry on the Declaration of Independence, they were coming at people with the Stamp Act. So this is not one and done. We need to get this fixed. They've been trying to do this since day one, in the last 60 years especially. So we need to not only do this now, but keep going in the future. There's a reason we got here, because people didn't stay involved.
Well,
Go
freedom
ahead.
isn't free. Freedom is
Yeah.
not free. You have to work at it. And the American people got a little complacent. Things were good for a long time and kind of went to sleep at the switch a little bit. And while we were sleeping, the enemy got in the gate. And we need to clean it up, and we the people to get involved.
I think the first part of your organization name, Unite, is the key, because one of us alone can do very little. But it's just like the bee. One bee is going to be annoying, but 1,000 bees coming at you will make a difference. And we need to unite as people. As you said, Randy, and all of you, I think at one point or another, unite as people of the United States to save the country, to bring the country back. I mean, we're already on the precipice. But hey, all of you, I appreciate you coming on today. One of the things that we always do is we end our show with a word of prayer, because we believe that, all the work that we do is for nothing if we don't bring God into the picture and have him lead us. And Fred is our prayer warrior. So Fred, I would ask you to pray for all these individuals and the work that Unite for Freedom is doing as you pray us out of here today. Okay.
All right. Tom wants a mailing address for this guy, so remember that. Okay, so
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord, for this day, Lord. I just ask, Lord, I say this often, Lord, that you would continue to bring the darkness to the light, even if it's, I know where the enemy closes one door, you always open another, Lord. We just pray for wisdom for all the people who are involved in this, that the truth would be separated from the lie, Lord, that we would know what to do and how to handle the attacks of this enemy. We know that we can't do anything without you. You are our guide, and your word is the truth, and we trust you. And ask, Lord, you protect each and every member here who are fighting for the truth, and give us wisdom that we cannot even understand, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Amen. I believe there's a email, a mailing address at the bottom of our website if they're looking for ours.
Great.
But,
If not, I'll get it and I'll forward it to Tom. So
perfect.
again, thank you everybody for coming on. It was a great show. We'll have you all on again. And wherever you are in the world, be blessed
And be a blessing to others.
All right. Have a
Thank
good
you
day,
all.
everybody.